until he eventually died of starvation. Interpretation. At first glance, it might seem that Pausanias simply fell in love with another culture, a phenomenon as old as time. Never comfortable with the asceticism of the Spartans, he found himself enthralled by the Persian love of luxury and sensual pleasure. He put on Persian robes and perfumes with a sense of deliverance from Greek discipline and simplicity. This is how it appears when people adopt a culture in which they were not raised. Often, however, there is also something else at play. People who flaunt their infatuation with a different culture are expressing a disdain and contempt for their own. They are using the outward appearance of the exotic to separate themselves from the common folk who unquestioningly follow the local customs and laws, and to express their sense of superiority. Otherwise, they would act with more dignity, showing respect for those who do not share their desires. Indeed, their need to show their difference so dramatically often makes them disliked by the people whose beliefs they challenge, indirectly and subtly, perhaps, but offensively nonetheless. Cultures have norms that reflect centuries of shared beliefs and ideals. Do not expect to scoff at such things with impunity. You will be punished somehow, even if just through isolation, a position of real power. Follow the local customs and laws, and to express by the Persian love of luxury and sensual pleasure. He put on Persian robes and perfumes with a sense of deliverance from Greek discipline and simplicity. This is how it appears when people adopt a culture in which they were not raised. Often, however, there is also something else at play. People who flaunt their infatuation with a different culture are expressing a disdain and contempt for their own. They are using the outward appearance of the exotic to separate themselves from the common folk who unquestioningly follow the local customs and laws, and to express their sense of superiority. Otherwise, they would act with more dignity, showing respect for those who do not share their desires. Indeed, their need to show their difference so dramatically often makes them disliked by the people whose beliefs they challenge, indirectly and subtly, perhaps, but offensively nonetheless. Cultures have norms that reflect centuries of shared beliefs and ideals. Do not expect to scoff at such things with impunity. You will be punished somehow, even if just through isolation, a position of real powerlessness. Many of us, like Pausanias, feel the siren call of the exotic, the foreign. Measure and moderate this desire. Flaunting your pleasure in alien ways of thinking and acting will reveal a different motive to demonstrate your superiority over your fellows. Keys to power. Wise and clever people learn early on that they can display conventional behavior and mouth conventional ideas without having to believe in them. The power these people gain from blending in is that of being left alone to have the thoughts they want to have. Keys to power. Why?
Alright, so my buddy Joy is not optional is up to his fun shit again, I guess. Stuck in that a bit. Alright, so this was one of the older ones, so since he deletes all his comments before before I can do anything about it, I'm gonna just go on my emails since they all go there so I can still see them and show them to you. So this was one of the first ones I received from him a while ago. Okay, so these are the older ones. Okay, so, and then this one I hadn't noticed until recently. This was after all that, the one video. But anyways, does not fear God. So joy is not optional, does not fear God. Okay, cool, good for you, bud. And then, I had 48 subscribers when I woke up this morning, and then I just got this one. someone has subscribed to me. That's awesome. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. It's always cool. And then I got, I don't know if these ones. So like this video here, it's 6 days old. Joy's not optional commented on your video, psychologically dissecting Thunder Wizard for the last time. And I use Thunder Wizard's video, Joy is not optional, as the thumbnail, as you can see there. And he wrote tasty for whatever reason. Cool, all right. This guy's got some issues, but it's all good. And then this is the other ones he deleted here. Let's see, there's more one here. There was more than one here, but all right. So it's optional. Why did you attack my brother, you queer? I don't think he knows how to spell, but that's okay. And for some reason, you know, since Joy's not optional, created this on, I think, the 17th or the 18th of November. I'd have to look at my video. I showed that on one of my videos, probably that video actually. Since this is a personification, or this YouTube account called Joy is not optional, was only created just to, maybe not just attack me, but maybe attack people like me or comment on us. So why did you attack my brother, you queer? Asking why I attack somebody and then attacking me. I don't know who your brother is, and even if I didn't attack your brother, but nonetheless, I'm married with 4 children, you know, and I talk about sex quite a bit on here. And if you're referring to your brother, the Thunder Wizard, well, you know, he's a single man, and if that's what you like, that's what you like. But don't project onto me the things that you may or may not be, or things you can't deal with. But yeah, I think that's just fucking funny. Oh, shit, some people are fucking, like a sad kind of funny, you know. It's pretty sad, but you know, at the same time, it just is as it is. What are you gonna do about it, right? I don't want to give 2 shits about much of this. Yeah, for some reason I thought this one had a double whammy on here, but nonetheless, not really a big deal. Maybe it's this one. There's a question mark here. Sorry to everyone, I have nothing against Dark Love and the Wizard. Anger is poison, and you expect other to get killed. I'm Christianity because I didn't believe it. I left because I believed. I couldn't worship that God so badly because creator, but I can't worship any God. I worship love. Alright. I believe one negative thought has more power than 1 million New Age affirmations. I believe in the power of negative thinking. Do you? I believe in the power of negative thinking, as in when it comes to if you give power to your negative thoughts, in the sense of fuck, I'm never gonna be rich, and you put a lot of emotional bullshit into there, and then you go out there and your action you take, not necessarily like action, like you're not taking action to make yourself more poor, but you're going out there and not even bothering to try. So your action is like an inaction, basically. And you know, when you add that to your negative thoughts and never being wealthy, and then putting the emotion in that, you know, you feel shitty because you can't handle your business, then yeah, I believe in that power of negative thought. I also believe that there's a time and a place where you actually need negative thoughts to get you through whatever hardship you're going through. So, you know, sometimes it's beneficial to be having negativity or negative thoughts, and there's obviously positive ones as well. But anyways, so I just wanted to show you some of this. He's back at it, you know, fucking sending me shit again, and it's fucking funny. It doesn't really matter either at the end of the day, but you know, somebody like this, I think, would be very beneficial to turn on. Well, actually, not really, because they're very polarized, and I think you have to be depolarized to actually get the correspondences out of the book, the 48 Laws of Power. But if you could put aside that and actually listen to some of the things that are said in there, it'd probably do them a world of good. But yeah, I don't attack anybody. If someone puts information out there, I don't do as this person, Joy is not optional, does. I don't go on anybody's channel like the Thunder Wizard and leave comments calling him a queer or asking him why he attacked anybody. I make my own video content on my own channel, and if somebody is teaching something out there and using absolutes and saying, you know, you have to do this or you have to do this or this doesn't work, and I believe otherwise and I have the proof, well, yeah, I'm 100% gonna make a video stating why I'm right and that motherfucker's wrong. And you can agree or disagree. I don't give two fucks. You have every right and capability to just turn my fucking channel off. So, you know, as far as this goes, well, cool. Think what you want to think, bro. But thank you for the view and the comments, and yeah. So, and maybe maybe this is part of the reason. Maybe I'm fueling you by, you know, showing everybody your comments and putting you on the video. You know, my channel's not a big channel by fucking any stretch of the imagination, but I'm grateful for everybody who tunes into my shit. And, you know, anybody ever wants to get their name out there on a video, well, there's a few ways how. And even the positive comments and questions I get, I generally reply to and put them on here when I realize I have them. So, anyways.
All right, so forgive me, I'm pretty tired. 11 o'clock at night, but I just want to, you know, respond and maybe potentially make a video. Who knows if I'll get it out today? Unless you go to my channel, my newest videos are only being like dropped like 3 days after I release them. You notice that on my daughter's channel. One of my videos said, watch Ceremonial Witchcraft's newest video, blah, 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 blah. And it was the Joy is Not Optional one, with that thumbnail. So, yeah, when he watches the next two that come out, actually, I think he's the one that I'm subscribed, but who knows? Who cares? But, having to go out of his way to tell me that Thunder Wizard is enjoying his life, I guess. Thunder Wizard is enjoying and you are miserable, you are mirrored, or something to that effect. Ridiculous. Okay. Unless you are the Thunder Wizard, how the fuck do you know? Once again, he shows everybody what he wants them to see. He tells everybody what he wants everybody to hear. I can do the same fucking thing. And, you know, for you to make assumptions like that I'm miserable and he's not, it's just, whatever. You got some problems, bro. That's all I gotta say. But regardless of all that, when he refers to the attacking, it might have been that video. I compare what Jordan Peterson says about the Adam and Eve story, about the serpent tempting Eve, and how the feminists, there's a feminist group or movement that takes it and says, you know, society's blamed the woman because of this and how it's toxic. And, you know, I've said it many times that I agree with that, to a certain extent. But the way Jordan Peterson breaks it down in a whole different way is better. But he goes into a little bit of depth on this, comparing it to, because the way Adam acts, when God asks him where they are, he says, oh, I heard you looking for me, and I hid because I was naked and I was scared. And that's when he knows he ate the fruit. And then Adam starts blaming it on Eve, and then blames God for God making Eve. And I made the comparison, because in the Joy is Not Optional video, then the wizard blames his ex for all the issues he had. All his physiological issues. And I know he's got, I don't know if it's the same one or a different one, but he made this site about this some type of personality disorder that I guess she was, and how toxic it was. So in that video he says that, you know, just like Adam blames Eve for, you know, oh, I did something bad against God, you know. Well, my wife or fiance or partner was giving me all my illnesses. I was unhappy. It was nothing to do with me. It was all her. And then he goes even further and says it was the universe that forced me into it. I didn't have a choice. Meaning, like, when I met her, I could have said no, or when things started getting bad, instead of, you know, cutting my losses or trying to work through it, or instead of turning a blind eye to it, willful blindness, I stayed in there and kept trying, you know. instead of taking ownership and responsibility, he decides to blame it on her and the universe. And I was using that as a way to show you how anybody, even teachers and gurus, can and will be in scarcity at times. Everybody will. Once you realize the difference between scarcity and abundance, and how scarcity, there are times that scarcity can be beneficial, but it's not in this personal value way or blaming way. It's not really the way that I learned from Freud or Xavier or anything like that, but by not being around so much, so that when you do come around, that kind of being scarce, if you're making video content every day and you stop making it for a while, and people will miss your video content, and then when you come back, it'll be like, ooh, that kind of thing. That kind of scarce is beneficial to create attention, and people don't know what they got till it's gone, kind of thing, right? That's kind of what I'm talking about. But other than that, if you're gonna blame the universe for giving you that girl and not taking responsibility for you, they line it up, you meet this girl, you're attracted to her, things start going to shit, and you just say, it's okay, and then the same thing happens again. It's like, well, it's starting to be a pattern here, red flag, alarms are going off. No, it's okay. Well, you're gonna say, I was forced into those. It's like, come on, buddy, get a grip. And if you think that's an attack, well, then you don't know much. If you're just gonna listen to Thunder Wizard and believe every word he fucking says, like he's holier than thou and he knows best and no one else can try to interpret what he says and tell you where he's wrong, well, you got some serious fucking issues. And not only that, you're gullible and you're going to be taken for a fucking ride, and you're going to be, bait for con man. So watch out, dog. Seriously. Joy's on optional, whatever the fuck your real name is. You need to watch out. You're going to get conned if you keep just believing people. I mean, that's a terrible, terrible way to look at things. And I'm not saying I'm accurate. I'm not saying what I said is 100% true. It was just to show you, because Peterson after says that he compares that to these sites where men who have terrible relationships with women go online and complain about women. All these bitches. First of all, it's their fault. And second of all, what a world this is that we have fucking women like that. So first they blame the women, and then they blame God or the universe, It's, it happens often. I get it. I've been there. I've been with women that treated me like shit. But in the same sense, it's like, well, she was very flirtatious with people when we went out places, Alarms were going off. I decided against it. Caught her cheating on me. Decided to take her back. And then, when I got incarcerated, she left me. It's like, I'm going to blame the universe for giving me her? No, that was my fault. I met with her. She was with another man when I was with her. This is my ex, not my wife now. She was with another man when I met her. And she left that man for me. It's like right there is going to be in the back of your mind. And I'm not saying you can't start a relationship like that. You absolutely can. And it can sustain. But, if that's the only thing you have and there's no other signs after that and they're completely faithful, then, that is definitely a possibility. So don't twist what I'm saying there. But that was the beginning point. And it's like, okay, well, that doesn't matter. Sometimes you find somebody and it's like, click, and you just drop what isn't serving you and you follow your heart or your intuition, your gut, whatever you want to call it. But there was that, and then, the flirting with everybody, and then, because that's how she was when I met her, even when me and her were seeing each other, she was still flirting with other people as well. So I was like, okay, and then, straight up caught her cheating. And then, I was not surprised when she left me. I was definitely sad, depressed, and all that fucking junk, but, I wasn't blaming anybody. This is before spirituality. That was my own fault. People were even telling me so. But if you think that's an attack, okay, then you're either a Thunder Wizard and taking it personal, or you're not, and you think that everything he says is like gospel, and no one should go against it. Well, fuck you. I'll go against anybody that's running their fucking mouth that is saying paradoxical fucking shit and is, doesn't have people's best intention in maybe their mind. Or maybe they're just in scarcity because maybe their intention is to help people, but at the moment things are going right. They're not, the their pendulum swing. They're on the upswing, on the downswing right now. It's like, well, before he keeps bringing people down with him until he gets out of this rut, it's like, well, I'll just, on my own channel, anybody who watches me and him, if they're kind of wondering what the fuck's going on, well, then, they'll have my interpretation. That's all. Take it for what you want. If you're not happy with yourself, and if you're not in a good place in your own life, that comment like that, whether it's you, like the Thunder Wizard, or it's someone else perceiving how the Thunder Wizard would take this, it's like, if you take this as an attack, it's like, if it's not true, then it's not an attack. And if it's true, it's not an attack. It wasn't for me to make fun of him. It was to show that is common, and it's not going to serve you. You're better off to take responsibility for all your actions, even if you can almost prove and other people agree that 90% of the fucking problem wasn't you, but there was still 10% there you could have did, and maybe that's even 99 to 1. You still had a part in it. There was still one time where you could have either walked away or stopped, but you went along with it. Maybe during that you could have helped change it, directions. Instead of going to a worse place, you could have brought it to a better place, and you chose not to, or you out of fear, you didn't stand up for yourself, or you didn't want to be the only one with those thoughts, so you just stayed quiet. Whereas if you would have said something, at least you could have walked away then when everybody thought you were crazy, and then you would have the last laugh when it went down, or you would probably would have realized that more people have thought just like you. So, anyways, I think that's as far as I'm going to go to respond to this. But the last thing I want to say is, any teacher out there worth their salt should be willing and open to constructive criticism. Now, if he is your teacher and you're getting value from him, then why are you watching my channel, who's taking apart things that may or may not be significant to what he's training you about? Why should that matter? Is all I'm saying. Once again, I don't like how he's taking things that I use, that I know quite a few people that use them, and the people that teach them, they're providing value, they're providing a service, and this stuff is valuable. When someone tries to take that value, who hasn't practiced these traditions, they know their own tradition, but they don't know this one, yet they can make statements and absolutes and drop facts, and about how it may or may not work, or how it may be more trouble than it's worth, or it's too intellectual, or don't bother with it, or it's Abrahamic religion. It's like, you don't know the first thing about it. You're worried that people won't pick your system, that they're going to do this one and show you're in scarcity because you don't think you have value, or you're not providing as much value as these potentially do. So instead of upping your game, or learning this stuff and seeing how you can incorporate it with yours so you have both, you're just going to try to take away from the one, and by default yours becomes more valuable. And it's like, well, I guess not under my watch. That's how I'll put that. But I'm not here to teach people to do what I do. I'm here to tell people what I did, it worked, and more importantly, to potentially guide or teach them how to learn how to teach themselves with the tools that are free, or the people that offer programs. These are the ways that you can do it according to my experience. And anybody who's like me, like they watched my content and heard my stories and my demeanor, they might relate. And or my birth chart, I put it in many places. People can look at it and look at theirs. Maybe we have similar placements, stuff like that. that's what I'm doing here. So, if you're not scarcity, or you're not just trying to, because I don't know if he's trying to make people feel like victims or worthless, but by telling everybody that, anyways, like I said before, I watch his videos and I start feeling like, I'm less than. And he's taking the things that I practice, that I've done well with, and crapping on them and saying why they don't work. And then, it's just like, this just isn't going to help me in any way, shape, or form. So I got to turn it off. And I don't know if that's intentional. Maybe that's his game plan and strategy, or it's just somewhere he's at. But, it's not an attack. It's not a personal attack on the man. It's just maybe a wake-up call, or a way to teach people how not to get there. But anyways, that's as far as I'll go here. And since we're talking about responsibility and taking responsibility, and since, I used Pearson last time when this joy is not optional person was commenting, and, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to play, I want to say a 10-minute long clip, but I think it's, somewhere between 5 and 7, but maybe 10. Go through, in this little bit, he goes through some of the main things I've talked about in my last videos, some of the main things whenever you are doing an initiation or depolarizing. He even gets into alchemy, and, as above, so below. He gets into perspective. There's so much packed in here, so maybe I'll dissect a little bit by a little bit, either as it plays, after he says specific things, or after it's all done, I'll come out and talk about it, and something to that effect. So yeah, let's, here's Peterson.
Oh, I don't know if you'll be able to see what's going on, everybody. I'm driving home from Ottawa from work. I guess before I get to the Peterson stuff, I'll keep going a little bit. And first thing I want to say to the username, joy is not optional, is, well, I already said quite a few things to him, but it's like, first of all, if you think I'm attacking Thunder Wizard, if you go back to when he was doing his reptilian videos, and he was responding a lot to a guy named Lilith Archives, something like that, he announced and welcomed and invited everyone to, if they don't like him, to go back to their channel and tell the world about him being a reptilian or everything they don't like about him. And he made a distinction. I can't remember the exact words at this very moment. It will come to me. But he also made a distinction. It wasn't just about the reptilian content. It was about anything we don't like about him. He says not to comment on his thing, which I'm not doing. He says to go to your own YouTube channel and do that, and that's what I'm doing. So for you to come over here and shit on me and say I'm attacking him, it's like, guy told me I could do it, first of all, your brother, if that's who you're talking about. Because if that's not who you're talking about, then, you got the wrong guy. But anyway, that's irrelevant. But here's the other thing. First of all, anytime you want to either come on a live video with me, or my podcast, or both, and talk to me and argue with me, I'm giving you the fucking invitation right now, bud. You want to fucking talk to me and chirp from behind your computer desk and delete your little messages? Well, here's your invitation. You want to fucking come on and tell me what your beef is, and we'll work this shit out? By all means, invite it. Send me the comment, and we'll figure out the details after. See, I can put away petty differences, and because I don't take anything you said personally. None of that bothers me, to be honest. And I know I can talk to you, and you can, whatever you decide to say, it doesn't matter what you say. I know I'll be able to take everything you say, implement a teaching in there, and whether you see it or not is going to be irrelevant. I'll still be able to show the other people that do have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, a fucking lesson with your arrogant, ignorant, unawoken ass. So, but all that aside, I can put that shit aside. Let's say we were really hating on each other. I could put that aside. We can literally just straight up and say, okay, well, how do you want to do this? Use the password to my fucking
fucking Spreaker, or you send me audio clips, I won't fucking alter your shit at all, man. And that's the honest to God truth. I won't. You want to do it on your terms? Well, that's fine, fucking too. Send you my audio clips. Like I don't care. This doesn't matter to me. This is pointless. This is below. This is so far removed from everything I want to do. Hence the reason I don't want to talk about the Thunder Wizard anymore, because he's below me, and I don't mean that in the way of teaching and all that, but I want to be somewhere and something, so I'm going to look at the people that are the imitation and the mirror of what I want to become. Thunder Wizard is not that man. More than that, I don't want him having a hard time taking people down with him. Because any teacher, guru, or anybody for that matter, who thinks they know something about their spirituality, should be willing to take constructive criticism, should be willing to let others take their concepts and rip them apart. Because if you put out a concept, if you put out a thought, if you put out an idea, you put out a statement that people can't tear apart, then you got nothing to worry about. And I've teared many of his apart. And, his arguments would be, well, it's not about shamanism. Exactly. Why the fuck are you talking about shit you don't practice, and then trying to pass it off to the world that, I don't know anything about this, but this stuff equals this, so don't do it, okay? Only do mine. It's like, no, I'm going to call you out as a fucking fraud, or someone who at least doesn't know anything about that system. And that's what I tried to do. I always tell him with all due respect, I always say stuff like, I think he's got, I think he's got something to offer, I think you'd be well served watching his own videos, I think you'd be well served buying his. I've always said shit like that. Never not said it like that. So for you to come and fucking attack me and call me a queer and whatever else, it's just, you're so fucking petty and childish, and like, I don't care. You want to keep commenting, by all means, man, by all fucking means. It does not bug me, but I meant it when I said that everything that I say, I stand by and I back it up. And if someone ever brings anything to me and says, hey, this is wrong and this is why, I will look at their information and then I will compare it to my information. Because, I could have looked up something and I could have 5 different sources, 2 being books, 2 being, website archives, something, maybe it's from fucking whatever, and then, something being from another video, maybe the original spot where I saw it, and then come to find out that maybe some of that information is inaccurate. That's always a possibility. But I can source and I can reference and I can tell you exactly everything that I've done, except for when it comes to the metaphysical, spiritual exercises that I do from my practice, with my little spin on it. Well, that shit is a little different, but I can tell you through my experience how it worked, and I can break it down pretty simple and correspond it to something that makes sense. And people who have, anyways, point is, you're attacking me because you don't like the shit I say about Thunder Wizard, because for some reason you think he's the man and the shit, and what he says is accurate. Well, I hate to tell you, but what he's saying is not always accurate. When it comes to the shamanism and all that, yeah, I'm not going to try to prove that wrong. I'm assuming he knows a fuckload about that. But when it comes to the universe forcing him into doing things, and affirmations, and Western magic, and chaos magic, and it's like, don't even go there. I've been studying that, maybe I haven't been doing it, but I've been studying non-fucking stop, and putting it in practice non-stop. Not just one book and then assumption after assumption, that's just idiocy. Anybody does that in a fucking, scholar kind of setting, in an intellectual fucking circle, would be laughed at. So the Thunder Wizard, for someone who talks about doing research, and you should do your research and learn how to search within the page and all this other stuff, is like if he was to go to any intellectual scholars and try to debate and prove his points, on something like that, he would be laughed out of the fucking place. And there's a lot of different science experiments that prove some of the stuff that I'm saying. So, I'm willing to be, take my concepts, take my ideas, and try to tear them apart. But if your only argument is, well, Thunder Wizard said it doesn't work, it's like, okay, what is Thunder Wizard basing that on? Because it's definitely not his personal experience. He's on record saying that.
You know what I mean? As soon as you go on record, say something. This is the problem with our society. If you go on record, so you put out a paper, a scientific paper, and this is why peer review, is normally the norm. However, there's a lot of scientists now just posting their findings on Facebook and, I'm a scientist and here's my findings kind of thing. That's not peer review. Problem is your whole thing, and this could be with anything. It could be from a lawyer case to anything else. As soon as there's one thing wrong in your statement, then everybody shoots the baby out with the bathwater. So for all the shit he knows about shamanism, when he comes on record and says affirmations is bullshit, and then all of a sudden comes back on record and says, I'm not saying affirmations is bullshit, I never said that. It's like, yeah, you did. Well, then you can literally take all of it. And so that's why he should think before. He shouldn't be so fucking cocky up there trying to tear people apart. Not to mention, if he's going to put out energy like, oh, if you come at me, man, I'm going to tear you apart, which, some people probably deserve it. But if he's going to make the same mistakes those people make, well, then he's going to get the same fucking fate. And you can come at me for dishing that out, but, it is as it is. You should be more careful, that's all. Or, here's a simpler solution, don't shit on other spiritualities that are simply just trying to find answers. Stop claiming that you have all the fucking answers. And have your life and then try to pretend like that's the best thing in the world, And like I said, I don't think he's a bad guy. I actually do enjoy watching his stuff, and I haven't watched his stuff in a while. Actually, I don't think he's put out a video, but actually, I don't know. He may have blocked me. I don't know. But anyways, that's enough about that for now. Let's get into why responsibility is so goddamn bloody important, and even more than that, the things that Peterson says in this is like magic 101. Some of it, and some of it might be a little more advanced, but a lot of it is really good information that people should know. So I want to break some of that shit down. I think I need to find my fucking shit before I go into this fucking store. Oh, come on. Anyways, yeah. So
alright, you can't really see me, but we'll do it anyways. Okay, so I haven't got to the responsibility part yet of Peterson. I keep putting it off, but I was just rewatching to see where I left off and all that. So a few things. I'm going to break down. Fuck. I really don't want to, but it's a good example. So, my last few videos I said Western magicians and potentially chaos magicians and witches, maybe, whoever. Magical practitioners, the people that maybe, I don't know if the shaman, fucking, to the Thunder Wizard includes witches into that or not, but I know he said Wicca a few times, some of it. I've seen him give a props to Wicca or whatever, says some similar stuff, like it works, but it gets too new agey or something like that. But I can prove to you, not prove is the wrong word, because the fucking video, that Joy is not optional that he made when he's blaming the universe for forcing him into something. Okay. It's a while ago, and who knows how he may or may not have changed since then. And more recently in his videos, he says what he's trying to do is to get you guys, teach everybody how to speak to the universe. So you can speak things to the universe, so you can get the things correctly. And he's just trying to do that in a correspondence kind of way, which is actually a pretty clever way. So he's being the macrocosm to your microcosm, meaning he's the macrocosm, you're the microcosm, you ask him questions. When you don't ask him the correct question, or you have an agenda, or you're trying to set him up, well, he just chops you in half, his own words. And I've seen him do it, and he's actually, I think he's pretty decent at, seeing underlying issues and whatnot. But nonetheless, and I was on the end of that one time, so I know from experience. So once again, I'm not hating on the guy, but I'm gonna prove to you why, as above, so below, the law of correspondence is so fucking important. How I can use that to show you that Thunder Wizard, at least in that video way back then, and once I reveal this, if he does in fact watch my stuff, well then he'll now know the answer. And this is something everybody needs to understand to perform magic, to perform witchcraft, to perform whatever you're trying to perform, whatever kind of, if it's chaos magic, if you're trying to get affirmations, if you're doing candle magic, if you're doing just symbolism in general. I mean, when you put on a wedding ring is a symbol. You and your wife put on a wedding ring that you get for each other. Why? Well, it's a circle. Oh, what's a circle? Well, it's for Saturn. But it's infinity. It's eternity. It's continuous. It's perfect. You know, cylindrical. There's no beginning and no end. You know, that's a symbol. And guys, the male, conscious, fire, whatever, all about action. You know, I like having rings, don't get me wrong, but for me, I wanted to marry my wife because I loved her and I wanted to prove that I loved her and I wanted to be with her for the rest of my life and I want to be devoted to her and I want her to know that there's nobody else for me but her. And it's my action that I want her to see. Whereas for her, it's about symbolism. Am I doing romantic things for her? Did I get down on one knee? Did I get her a ring? This is why women, how's it go? If you liked it, then you should have put a ring on it. Like Beyonce has a song about it, for God's sakes. If you like it, then you should have put a ring on it, you know? Because you're not serious unless you're giving me a ring. That's the female mind. That's the subconscious. And I can take that further and say the subconscious is the universe. And you're going to say, well, no, the subconscious isn't the universe. In a manner of speaking, it kind of is. There's no separations of degree between us and the universe. We are the universe. Therefore, trying to speak to the universe is trying to speak properly to yourself. But more accurately, that part of yourself that is subconscious, subconscious, or unconscious. That the part that the conscious can't talk to, because when the conscious is gone, you are unconscious. This is the point of the different trainings that connect the subconscious to the conscious, so you can practice things that make you able to receive messages. I think it was 2 days ago, I was laying in my bed and I started dreaming about my job, but I was fully able to do it. It was almost like I was at my fucking job, okay? It was as if I was at my job where I was bringing and cutting, I was cutting the siding pieces and I was bringing it to the guy, doing whatever. And I was able to say things almost as if baiting the guy who's been training me to get him to allow me to do new things so I could learn and learn and learn. And you can say, well, why wouldn't you just go to the bank and rob it and get a bunch of money and all that? It's like, well, because within your dream, you can take your conscious control. This is how it works for me. I can take conscious control over my dream when I'm in it. However, the setting and where I am, you know, and like, you're limited to the thoughts you can use as well. So like, I'm in the setting, it's all about work, and it's like I have the free will to maneuver within my work setting, but not necessarily be like, okay, I'm going to go to my car, I'm going to go to the bank, and all of a sudden I'm going to open the glove box, there's going to be a gun, and it's just going to appear, shit like that. It's not like that, not for me anyways, not at this moment. But the cool thing was, I would come out of it, and it was like I was conscious for quite a while, but every time I went back to sleep and I just visualized the area, all of a sudden I was back there. So it was like I could do that night only, because I can't do it like right now either. But at that moment, at that night, I was able, it was 2 nights ago, it wasn't last night, it was the night before. I was able to just close my eyes and visualize it. I probably did it about 5 times in a row until my baby started coughing and I had to go downstairs and get her some Tylenol with the decongestant and all that. And then I gave her some, put some eucalyptus spray there to help open up the nasal passages and blah, 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 blah. But the point is, all my training is so I can consciously get information from the subconscious, and from there I can relate it to you. Now, I showed you my chart placements in my last couple videos and why I believe that I and people like me can receive information from the divine. However, now I'm getting stronger and stronger at being able to do the opposite. So now in a conscious state, I can get stuff from the subconscious, but now in a unconscious state, I can use my conscious. I don't know if that's accurate, but it's like I can use the subconscious, or because you're not conscious when you're asleep. But anyways, it's very much similar to the meditation states you get when you can visualize, or what Carl Jung used to do. And it was like imagining, dreaming while he was awake. You know what I mean? Something to that effect. So anyways, I'm going to prove to you why I think Thunder Wizard, it's not to diss him. It's not to tell you he's unevolved or anything like that. Because maybe he's working his way up to this. See, I just gave him an out. So you can say, yeah, I knew this the whole time. I was just trying to get you guys to figure it out for yourselves. Because there's no point in just telling people shit. Well, some things people kind of need to know. And the people that don't believe it are not ready for it. Alright, so what I wanted to get into, it wasn't much of anything. It's just, like I said, any teacher, anybody out here on YouTube, you know, we don't have to be truthful. We can claim whatever the fuck we want to claim and say whatever the fuck we want to say. But if anybody wants to challenge that, you know, if they have their comments section open, then they can challenge it. I mean, it just comes down to that. So, you know, when I say my stuff, I didn't start making podcasts, you know, until when initially I wanted to make my YouTube channel. Like I said, I was going to make a channel exposing all the frauds was my initial intent, and telling you how to tell someone's fake, and then I realized that was a stupid thing. So for the most part, I stayed clear from there. And it wasn't until recently that when I came back to Thunder Wizard and I saw what he was doing, at first I got emotional reaction, then I started watching him, and then I started realizing that, you know, maybe we weren't on the same page, maybe we don't have the same. And it's okay to not have the same belief systems or do the same practice, but once I realized that he's against all practices besides his, not necessarily against, but, you know, he doesn't think it's worth your time doing what other people are doing. And, you know, he's allowed to say and do whatever he wants on there. But once again, so am I. I can take parts of his video and break them down. And if anybody feels I'm doing it out of context, I'm doing it out of malice, well, that's your opinion. And you're free to comment and tell me what's up. Before I go any further, though, I got to 50 subscribers, and that's actually like a little milestone for me. I couldn't wait to get to 50, and I'm so happy. So whoever, well, I mean, there's been like 2 or 3 subscribers this week, so, you know, thanks to you, but thanks to everybody who's subscribed to me from the get-go, and, you know, everybody else. I mean, I really, really, really do appreciate it. It's fucking amazing. So, but the point, this video was going to be about responsibility, okay? And so I thought it was fitting for a person coming after me saying, why did I attack Thunder Wizard? He's have one comment, and another comment was just tasty, question mark, and the other one was something about he's happy, I'm the one that's miserable, and I'm trying to mirror that, meaning I'm not happy, and I'm putting that on Thunder Wizard. And, you know, maybe, I don't think so, but maybe. I can't say I'm always fucking happy, but I'm definitely not miserable. And I'm not saying Thunder Wizard was miserable either, or unhappy. I was saying he was in scarcity. So if you don't know what the scarcity means, well then whatever. But if he's happy doing what he's doing, well then that's great, and I'm happy for him. All I was trying to point out in the beginning of that, well, few videos, was he's telling you to follow your passion and your bliss, mostly in his videos. Find your true heart's desire, and you gotta take action and all that to get there, which isn't inaccurate, but you're not gonna be able to find your true heart's desire until you go through some dark shit, dark night of the soul, until you heal some repressed emotions, some trauma that happened to you, and then it's gonna unlock for you. But until then, you're not going to be able to find that thing because you're not going to be stable. I have a really old video talking about this, meaning if you were to, and what I said was if you were to find your passion, things you're supposed to do before you become, and it's not like, I don't think everybody has to become depolarized, but to a certain extent, you have to go through some shit. You have to accept what happened to you in your past and realize that you're not that person anymore, and those things that happened to you is part of that shitty part of life. Some people go through some shittier shit, some people less so, and then maybe everybody eventually, you know, who knows why this happens. But if you were to get to your passion now before you deal with those things, well, you're not going to be able to necessarily sustain it because you might not know it's your passion, and more than that, you're going to be unbalanced going in there, and then when you finally do go through your dark night of the soul, you go through an initiation, you go through these life lessons, you deal with that trauma, well, it's going to fuck you up. Hence why I needed a lot of time off to figure some of this stuff out and do this initiation in between jobs, because it's very hard to maintain a job when you got life lesson after life lesson coming at you, and you got to try to maintain in the middle when all the chips are down, and get your family to go through it with you and make sure they're okay. And, you know, sometimes shit backfires. For example, it's not like I can tell my wife, well, this is just part of my initiation, all our hard times, babe, and once we get through it, we're going to be better than ever. And she's going to be like, you're a fucking wackadoo. If what you're saying is true, you're doing it on purpose to get us in hard times, which in a sense she'd be right, but in another sense, everybody goes through these phases. All I'm doing is being aware of them in the present and knowing that there's certain things I can do to make it less bad, less harmful, less
worrisome. And even better than that, there are certain things you can do to potentially even change it and get you to the other side faster. But it's not like I could tell her that, So, and what happened was she thought I wasn't serious, and then I go back to work. I start resenting her because I'm not happy. We don't really talk. The only connection we have is like sex, really. And lo and behold, she thinks she needs to find a new person, and then we are now past that. But all these things happen for a fucking reason, and this is why responsibility, doing your dark night of the soul, realizing you caused your own harm, realizing that the chips were down, and wherever you are, Canada, US, Russia, Australia, doesn't matter, Rome, Egypt, I don't know where you live, wherever you live, but if it started becoming something similar to any of those concentration camps, whether you're talking about Russia or China or Germany, that you'd most likely jump on the bandwagon and start persecuting whatever religion or race it was that everybody's persecuting, rather than being one of the very few that actually helped and try to save them. This stuff is important to know, and then you can deal with it. Before you deal with that, though, you're just in ignorance, really. And it's not to insult anybody, because there's stages I haven't gone through yet that I can't comment on because I don't know about yet. You know what I mean? This one I do know about, and I've gone through it, or am going through it. So I comment on it, and it's never to propel myself above anybody or pretend I'm better than anybody else. It's never about that. It's about trying to make it more noticeable to you, so you don't just think it's just crap sandwich and you got to eat it and pretend to smile at the same time. It's like, no, these things are happening and it's a good thing, but it's not like I can just tell my wife that, So it made it very difficult, and that's kind of the point. But you have to go through these things and realize these things. Otherwise, you're going to think the universe is some force that you can talk to, and it will give you stuff, that it's something separate from you, when it's not. It's actually you you're talking to. And you can send energy all the way to Saturn, and that energy will come back. You can pretend Saturn is a being, which you might be. All these things work, all these methods work, but some work faster, because there's been enough energy and enough belief, and people that know that there's universes inside of us. Like if you look at the cell system, if you look at like an atom, well, the old version of the atom looked more like a solar system, but you get my point. There's a galaxy within your carpet, just like there's one in space below the water, and in everything, and it's all part of the same thing, which is all coming back. It all comes back to the first hermetic principle, which is in the all mind. Everything is in the mind of God, which is just take it for what you want. For me, I use it. I think it's a really good way to perceive it, but there's many ways to perceive that same line of thinking, as long as you realize that we are in something that is way more complex than we are. So that would be the Godhead, right? It's more complex than we are, and has the capability to create all these things that are all connected, but give the illusion of separation. Within that, we forget that we're all connected, and we have to slowly find our way there, or at least try to maintain whatever the case is. But we have inherent gifts from that creator, from that all, because we are it, but we're not the whole part of it. So the whole thing together can create all of us. We are all the parts, so therefore we are the God, but we're not the whole thing. So unless you combine the 7 hermetic principles, or whatever is akin to that in your tradition, then you can't create on the micro level as the creator does on the macro level. That's why that's the second hermetic principle. As above, so below. As within, so without. As the universe, so the soul. Okay, it's within everything. Therefore, if you simply send your intention to yourself, to the part of yourself, to the universe inside you, to those energies inside of you, right? The 7 energies, the 7 planets. There's a reason we have those energies within us. We're a fucking solar system housing those fucking planets. We are the universe. So when you blame the universe, you're blaming yourself. If you say the universe sends me things, it's like, I'm not saying that's a wrong. Just call it the universe if you don't believe in God or deity, or you don't want to use that name, because God just means, one of the translations or definitions is release from earthly possession, just like demon is like rebellious spirit. Well, rebellious spirit is also,
But anyways, the point is, you can still call it the universe. I do all the time. But I know I'm talking to me. You know what I mean? I know I'm part of that universe. And being part of the universe, I can affect my universe because I am the universe. I am the one. These seven energies are within me. I'm the Godhead within my own body. So this galaxy that's within my body is within me, which is I'm the Godhead controlling, or at least housing it. And then the practices I do teach me how to control it. But this is why I said, and like I said, I gave him the out. You can say I already knew this. I came to that realization not long after that video, and and that's all good. You can say that, and maybe it's true. Point is, though, by saying I didn't have a choice, the universe chooses for me. It's, you are your universe. You make the choices. All your thoughts and your actions and your words up until that point led you to that place. But even once you're in the place that you led yourself to, you can still get yourself out of it, which is one of the other points I tried to make. Maybe it was prior to the Thunder Wizard thing, but it was like, we're the problem. COVID to what happened, and all these traumatic things that happen, we're the fucking problem. But because we're the problem, it means we're also the solution. If we cause the problem, then we can create the solution. That's great fucking news. But it all starts with responsibility. You can pretend the universe, God, or whatever you decide to call it, is some force picking on you, And that's kind of the vibe I got when I heard that video. You're gonna have to make the choice. I didn't have to make the choice because the universe chooses for me. It's like, no, you are the universe, and you're just using that as an excuse because you don't want to say, the guy up here trying to tell you you can manifest your life. I manifested this, and I shouldn't have. So, and you don't want people to not buy your product. Although you could have just said this is before I got into this, or I wasn't adept yet, and I made some bad decisions, But you're more likely to listen to somebody that says, even though this person was toxic, I obviously didn't help the problem either, we're both at fault here, and anyways, that's all I'm saying is, someone who just blame her, blame the universe, it's like, God, there's something so wrong with that, especially if that's a teacher, responsibility, you gotta have responsibility. There's nobody who preaches responsibility like Jordan Peterson, and when you watch him talk about it, he always gets an emotional reaction, and he hates it, you can tell. He's trying to hide it as it's building up in him, and he just breaks down, he starts crying, and he even says it in this part. I'm going to show you that. God, I don't know why this happens, this emotional response. But the reason why it's important to know these 7 hermetic principles, whether or not they're from an unbroken lineage, or it was unbroken lineage taught to people, eventually people going around the world and seeing all the other older traditions that might be derivative from, whether church came first or they came first, but then got switched, doesn't matter. You add all these together, as we get smarter, then we can come up with better concepts. And I'm telling you, if you read the Hermetic Principles, even if you don't do the whole book, you do the first part where it briefly explains them all, you'll see and you'll know, if you've ever done successful magic, you'll know that your magic had to operate within these rules. Everything has to. So anyways, I don't know if I'm still going to break down Peterson video, and I might actually play a clip on here from 48 Laws of Power, but I know that book is not necessarily a nice book. People don't like it, but there's a lot you can learn from that book. I'm not saying go around being a douche to people and using deception to get your ways and all that. Although, anyways, I won't even say that. But there's a lot of good things you can learn. Knowing there's a problem, realizing what the problem is. It's kind of like when people are using your mind against you, then you're somewhat inoculated from it, which is true. But in the same sense, you can still, some of that can still slip in, but you're less likely for it to happen, right? So if you read this stuff, well, then you can see who's using power tactics, whether they know it or not, on you, and that's helpful. And there's certain ones in there you'll be able to, fucking probably use yourself, but I haven't decided that yet. There's one place in there where he talks about if someone is out there, advertising that some other culture is better than their culture, and they want to move out of their culture and they pretend to be a whole different culture, whatever the case is, that person is blah, 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 blah. The first person I thought of was Thunder Wizard when he said that, and that's not to be mean, but, he traced back his roots, and he wants to be what his roots are, not the average American, fucking, who can blame him, average citizen, American, Canadian, whatever nationality you are, good to say about people these days, man or woman, from viruses to cancers on the planet to overpopulation to we're some problem. It's like the people saying that are also part of the problem as well. So it's like, go fuck yourself, yo. But anyways, so yeah, you might hear a few clips on there. One's about Nikola Tesla and how he got fucked over by dude who created electricity. Fucking oh my god. Oh, I can't even think of it. And how he was a businessman, not necessarily a scientist, but you know. Anyways, so you might hear a few things on there. They're very interesting, and there's a couple tidbits of it. But I'm definitely playing Peterson, and if I feel the need to, I'll come back on and I will, uh, break down his parts that I think are very useful to initiation, to magic itself, to depolarization, to mindset, to your perspective, to the pendulum swing, to how you can be creative with absolutely nothing, and how that's actually a prerequisite. Anyways, so if I decide to, I will, but I'm gonna go in there and have a movie night with my girls and my wife. This will be on probably some point tonight. Anyways, if I don't come back on, thanks once again. 50 subscribers. I'm super pumped about that. That is so fucking cool. I never thought I would actually get there, to be honest. And now that I'm there, it's like, fuck yeah, that's awesome. I'm proud. I'm fucking proud. And I was proud when I got 10. And then 20. And, 5. It was always cool. It's just, 50 is actually like a good number. If that's a classroom, that's too big of a classroom. That's a group of friends. It's a big group of friends. So point is, like, that's big. It's cool. I love it. Thank you very much, everybody who made that possible. Thank you. And the open invitation I gave to Joy is not optional. Goes for everybody. I said this at the beginning of my podcast. I may have said it on the YouTube videos itself, but I said if anybody ever wants to use my time, like my time, but my podcast, so want to either use it for their entire whatever, or just talk with me or ask me questions, I send that to the video as well. Either send me clips, go live, whatever. I'm okay with whatever. I don't give a shit. You can make videos all the time, send them to me. I'll put them on my channel if that's what you want. And then if you ever get your channel up and running, I will give them right back to you. That's why I said, like, if the Joy is not optional guy wants to do it, put the video on his channels, I'll send him my audio and video. I'll send them to him, and he'll be like, "Well, he's just gonna alter it, make it look like an idiot." Well, that's fucking fine. People want to know the real truth, they can come find me and watch the full video that will be on my channel, and that'll be that. And you'll just look like, whatever. It doesn't matter. Point is, we need to have these hard conversations. People that are ignorant, or like me calling someone else ignorant, I don't even like doing. The fact of the matter is, unless he looks at me and tells me where my flaws are, and I look at him and tell him where his flaws are, we're just going to remain flawed. And that defeats the purpose of trying to help, trying to fix any of these problems, trying to evolve, trying to do anything. It just defeats the purpose. What is the fucking point? I'm not one to argue about details. And that's why this bugs me, but they're not small details. They're like big concepts that if you understand them, you can understand how you can start changing your life. Like, well, you say, well, how is affirmations something that can help change your life? I mean, you always say there's faster ways. Yeah, if you understand how the affirmation works, if you understand how you always have self-negative talk, if you understand how to get stuff in the subconscious mind, then you can take the affirmation after you understand how that thing gets in there and does what it's supposed to do. Well, once you know all the theory, then the technique can be changed, meaning symbolism is what is the main thing is the best way to get something in your subconscious mind. Okay? Repetition plus symbolism equals fast results. But it's not a specific type of symbolism. It's not just sigils, it's not just candles, it's not just affirmations, it's not just water magic, things you do with soap or pods or everything and anything, okay? You can do anything as long as you have the formula right. So the formula is what you need. So affirmations can teach you the right formula, and then you can expand and make up your own magics from there. If you understand candle magic, you've got the same formula. It's the same formula, maybe with less repetition. See, I repeat my candle magic every night so that my mind knows candle magic works. So the way the affirmation repeats it to get that one statement in your mind. So affirmation is, I'm so grateful I got $3 grand. Okay, you got to say that 21 days or more in a row, and a bunch of times in the day, preferably when you're in the alpha state, when you first wake up, when you go to bed, meditate, whatever the case is. Okay, plus all the extras I always say, and that's where all these extras come from listening to people, putting together the formula they have with everybody else's formula, and the same common denominators that were there with everybody are the formula. So I have the formula, and it fucking works. And all I have to do is switch out different symbolism. So with candle magic, I do a candle every single night. And with the moon, I invoke something and I banish something. And I don't dwell on it. I don't have to think about it. Candle magic is repeating every single night. So my mind knows that my subconscious, whatever you want to call it, anything I write on that candle is going to manifest. Okay, that's what that repetition does. And what I write on the candle is specifically what I want the candle magic to manifest. But all these things have layers to them. They fucking adhere to the 7 hermetic principles within the magic. It's just the symbolism itself. But the point is, once you understand one of any of these techniques and you actually study it, you don't just listen to one guy saying one thing and you start doing it after him. No, you look at many people and then you try it and then you tweak it and you try some more and you research some more and you tweak it. Well, then you can do anything. Then there's no need for you to buy programs because you can make programs. You know what I mean? So, anyways, that's how a simple concept that someone can just tear up because they think it's just some new age garbage, which some people make it new age garbage. But it's bigger than that. You know, little sayings, little concepts, little anything. Like there's layers upon layers if it's meaningful. If something isn't meaningful, then it doesn't last, it doesn't matter, and I probably wouldn't even care. Which is probably, I'm not into his version of shamanism. Not that he doesn't have any worth and he can't teach you shit, but it's not something that in my mind is like, whoa, okay. Like Peterson, when he gets an emotional response, he knows it's something important. I get the same thing. Most people, if they meditate and they get that cross communication right, but even without that, there are certain things you're going to do. You're going to get emotional response. Just how we're made. You can train and make it better. Anyways, I'm going to keep babbling on. My eyes are shutting. I'm fucking tired, man. So I hope you enjoyed. If I don't come back on, have a great fucking day. If I come back on, well, I'll say it again. And once again, I'm going to say this again as well. Thank you, everyone. I really mean it. Thank you. And everybody who watches me, who sticks it out, who doesn't, I mean, if you feel the need to unsubscribe every once in a while when I piss you off, do it. You know, do what you got to do. And I'll be here if you decide to come back or not. But I really do appreciate it. Anybody out there who has been subscribed, who isn't anymore, who's also watching me, who may have left me bad comments or not, same goes. I really do appreciate it. And, you know, I'm willing to help, or if I can, and if I can't, then I can't. Big enough man to admit that. Just like if someone tells me there's something I have wrong, I'd rather know, so I don't keep saying it looking like a fucking idiot. I have to backtrack and redact and whatever else. So anyways, really, bottom of my heart, thank you, everybody. And yeah, my next podcast will be this, plus the astrology one that I've been trying to put on my podcast. For some reason, keeps fucking up every time I try. So it just is as it is, as they say, as I always say. But anyways, have a great day.
He divides land with his nephew Lot. He battles kings. He takes concubines. He argues with his wife Sarah. On 2 occasions, he tells kings that Sarah is his sister out of fear that they will kill him to get his wife. He arranges his son's marriage. In the place of the single story of Noah's drunkenness, there are, in the case of Abraham, the stories of a man's life. And one of the things I was really struck by reading this in depth and reading the commentary is how much like a story about a person it is. You know, Abraham isn't a divine figure in any archetypal sense precisely. I mean, he has archetypal elements because he's also obviously the founder of a nation. But fundamentally, he's a human being, and he has the adventures and he makes the mistakes of a human being. And it's the mistake part that really struck me, you know, because I was talking with a friend of mine this week, Norman Deutsch, who's a very remarkable person in many ways, and he was taking me to task. He was reading my book, which I'm going to publish, or which will be out in January. And in the book, in one section, I contrasted the God of the Old Testament with the God of the New Testament, and made the case sort of based on Northrop Frye's ideas that the God of the Old Testament was really harsh and judgmental, and that the God of the New Testament was more merciful and, at least to some degree, more sweetness and light. And Norman took me to task about that, saying that that was an overly Christianized interpretation, which would make sense because I derived it in part from Northrop Frye. And I really have come to understand that more, that he's right, that he's right about that, because the God in the Old Testament is actually far more merciful than he's generally made out to be. And you really see this it's good news fundamentally if you regard the representation of God as somehow key to the description of being itself. I mean, Abraham makes a lot of mistakes, serious mistakes, and yet he has a life, and he's blessed by God despite the fact that he's pretty deeply flawed and engages in deceptive practice. I mean, he's a good man, but he's not a perfect man by any stretch of the imagination, and things work out really well for him, and he's the founder of a nation and all of that. And that's good news for everyone, because perfect people are very, very hard to find, and if the only pathway to having a rich and meaningful life was through perfection, then we would all be in deep trouble. And so that's very satisfying to read that. And the other thing that I've been struck by is that, Abraham, and I think this is actually absolutely key to the interpretation of the story. Abraham goes out and does things. That's the thing. And so one of the things that I've noticed in my life is that nothing I've ever done was wasted. And by done, I mean put my heart and soul into, like attempted with all of my effort. That always worked. Now, it didn't always work the way I expected it to work. That's a whole different issue. But the payoff from it was always positive. Something of value always accrued to me when I made the sacrifices necessary to do something worthwhile. And so I think part of the message in the story in the Abrahamic stories is go do something. And I've thought about this in a variety of ways outside of the interpretation of this story, because I have this program some of you might be familiar with, which is called the Future Authoring Program, and it's designed to help people make a plan for 3 to 5 years into the future, and so what you do is you answer some questions. It's a writing program. You answer some questions about how you would like your life to be and what you would like your character to be 3 to 5 years down the road, if you were taking care of yourself like you were taking care of someone that you actually cared about. So you kind of have to split yourself into two people and treat yourself like someone you have respect for and that you want the best for. And that's not easy, because people don't necessarily have respect for themselves, and they don't necessarily want what's the best for themselves, because they have a lot of self-contempt and a lot of self-hatred, and a lot of guilt and a lot of existential angst and a lot of self-consciousness and all of that. And so people don't necessarily take care of themselves very well. And I think you have an obligation. It's one of the highest moral obligations to treat yourself as if you're a creature of value. And that is, in some sense, that's independent of your actions. And you might think about that metaphorically as a recognition of your divine worth in the biblical sense, regardless of your sins, so to speak. And I think that's powerful language as far as I'm concerned once you understand it. Anyways, with the self-authoring program, the future authoring program, you answer questions about how you would like your friendships to be conducted, because it's useful to surround yourself with people who are trying to move forward, and more importantly, who are happy when you move forward and not happy when you move backwards. Not when you fall, that isn't what I mean, but when you're doing self-destructive things, your friends shouldn't be there to cheer you on, and because then they're really not acting like friends, obviously. I know it's obvious, but it still happens all the time, and people allow it to happen. It's not a good idea. And how would you like to sort your family out? And I was thinking about this week too, because I was thinking about Noah's Ark, and there was a phrase in that story that I didn't understand, which was that Noah was perfect in his generations. I thought, I don't know what that means. And when you're going through a book like the Bible, if you don't understand a phrase, that actually means you've missed something. It doesn't mean that that's just not, that's not germane to the story. It means you're stupid. You didn't get it, man. You didn't get it. You didn't understand it. And so the idea that Noah was perfect in his generations, and that's why he could build an ark that would sustain him and humanity itself through the flood, it meant that not only did he walk with God, which is something that we talked about in the context of the Sermon on the Mount, but that he established proper relationships with his family, with his children. And so what that meant was that not only was he well integrated as a person, but his level of integration had reached the point where it stretched out beyond him and encompassed his family. And so it was Noah and the family that was in the ark. And I can tell you, and I really understood this year because I had a very tumultuous year. You could think about it from a personal perspective. I could think about it as a year that had no shortage of floods. And part of the reason that I was able to get through it, I also had terrible health problems. And one of the reasons I was able to get through it was because my family really came together around me, my kids, my wife, my parents, and my friends as well. And particularly a certain group of friends. And that's partly, all of that came together in my mind this week, and I thought, oh, that's what it means to be perfect in his generations, meant that he hadn't just straightened himself out, he'd also straightened out his relationships with his family. And I can tell you that when crisis strikes you, which it will, the flood will come, right? That's why the apocalypse is always upon us. The flood will definitely come in your life. And to the degree that you've organized yourself psychologically and also healed the relationships between you and your family, that could be the critical element that determines whether you live or die when a crisis comes, or whether someone in your family lives or dies. And so the idea of the ark containing the man who walks with God and whose generations are perfect, and that's what sustains humanity through the crisis. It's like you couldn't be more psychologically accurate than that. You know, and the other thing I was thinking about this week, I was thinking about another line in the New Testament. I think it's from the Sermon on the Mount, but I'm not absolutely sure. Christ compares the kingdom of heaven to a mustard seed. And so I was thinking about, a mustard seed is a very tiny seed, and it grows into quite a spectacular, complex plant. And I was thinking about how you should operate in the world in order to make it a better place, assuming that that's what you should be doing. And that is what you should be doing. And there's lots in the world to fix. Everything that bothers you about the world and about yourself should be fixed, and you can do that. And my dawning realization, I have a friend, he lives in Montreal, his name is James Simon. He's a great painter, and he's taught me a lot of things. He's helped me design my house and beautify it. And I bought some paintings from him a couple of years ago, and he did this series of paintings where he went around North America and stood in different places, and then he painted the view from here down. And so it's his feet planted in different places, on roads, in the desert, on the ocean. I have one actually hanging over my toilet, which is him standing at a urinal. Yeah, well, you know, he was trying to make a point, and the point was that wherever you are, it's worth paying attention. And that's because, you know, so all these places that he visited, he looked at exactly where he was, standing by the side of the road in the desert. Sort of mundane in some sense, but then maybe he put 40 hours into that painting, you know, and it's very, very realistic painting with really good light. And what he's telling you as a painter is everything is worth paying attention to an infinite amount, but you don't have enough time. And so the artist does that for you, right? The artist looks and looks and looks and looks and looks and then gives you that vision. And so then you can look at the painting and it reminds you that right where you are there's everything that there is right where you are. And that's a hard thing to realize, but it's actually true. And so I've been telling people online in various ways and in lectures that they should start fixing up the world by cleaning up their room. And I wanted to just elaborate on that a little bit before I get back to the lecture itself. So as it's become this weird internet meme, you know, and it's a joke, and good, it's a joke. I'm really happy about the fact that so much of this has got like the leaven of humor in it. It's really important, because that's what stops things from degenerating into conflict, humor. And I was thinking about this idea of cleaning up your room in relationship to the mustard seed idea. And you see, the thing about cleaning up your room, this is also something I learned from Carl Jung and his studies on alchemy, because for Jung, when the alchemist was attempting to make the philosopher's stone, he was not only engaged in the transformation of the material world, but he was engaged in a process of self-transformation that occurred at the same time as the chemical transformation. So it was a psychological work in some sense. Let's say you want to sort out your room and beautify it, because the beauty is also important. And let's say that all you have is just a little room, like you're not rich, you're poor. And you don't have any power, that's another thing. But you've got your damn room, and you've got this space right in front of you, you know, that's a part of the cosmos that you can come to grips with. And you might think, well, what's there in front of you, right in front of you? And the answer to that is it depends on how open your eyes are. That's the proper answer, because you could say, and William Blake said this, for example, and Aldous Huxley made comments that were very similar, that in a transcendent state you can see infinity in the finite. And you might say, well, you can see infinity in what you have within your grasp if you look, and you could say maybe that's the case with your room. And so you want to clean up your room. Well, okay, how do you do that exactly? Well, a room is a place to sleep. And so if you set your room up properly, then you figure out how to sleep and when you should sleep and how you should sleep. And then you figure out when you should wake up. And then you figure out, well, what clothes you should wear, because they have to be arranged properly in your dresser. And then you have to have some place to put your clothes. And if you're going to have some clothes, you have to figure out what you're going to wear those clothes to do, right? And then that means you have to figure out what you're going to do. And then your room has to serve that purpose, because otherwise it isn't set up properly. And if it doesn't serve your purposes, you will be unhappy and not happy in the room, because the way that we perceive the world is as a place to move from point A to point B in. And then if the place that we're in facilitates that movement, then we're happy to be there. And if the place that we're in serves as an obstacle to that movement, then we're unhappy to be there. And so what it means to set up your room is that you have to have somewhere to go that's worthwhile, or you can't set up your room, and then your room has to be set up to facilitate that. And then the next thing is, well, maybe you have to make it beautiful. But that's not easy, right? That means you have to have some taste. And that doesn't mean you have to have money. It doesn't, because you can be garish with money, and you can be tasteful with nothing. All you need is taste, and taste beats money when it comes to beautifying things, you know. I mean, not that money is trivial, because it's not, but taste is crucial, and people who are very artistically oriented can make beautiful things out of virtually nothing. And not only that, the literature suggests that if you're going to make beautiful things, putting real constraints on what you allow yourself to do facilitates creativity instead of interfering with it. Because let's say you have to make something out of nothing, right? Which I suppose would be a godly act, right? You have to make something out of nothing. You have to be creative in order to do that. And so then to beautify your room means that you also have to develop your capacity to be creative. And so then you can make your room shine. But then what will happen is that if your family isn't together, they will interfere with that. You'll interfere with that because you won't have the discipline to do it properly. But then when you start building this little microcosm of perfection with what you have at hand, then it'll evoke all the pathologies of everyone in your household. They'll wonder what the hell you're up to in there. And they won't necessarily be happy, because if they're in a lowly place, let's say, and so are you, and you're trying to move out of that, then the higher you move out of that, the more the place they're in looks bad. And you might say, well, what they should do is celebrate your victory over chaos and evil, but that isn't what will happen. What will happen instead is that they will attempt to pull you back down. They'll attempt to, and I mean, obviously all families don't do that, but all families do that to some degree, and some families do almost nothing but that. And so what that means is that if you're going to organize your room, then you're going to have to confront the devils in your house, and that's often a terrifying thing, because some of those devils have lineages that go back many, many, many generations, and God only knows what you have to struggle with in order to overcome that. And so to sort yourself out and to fix up your room is a non-trivial matter, you know, and you can do that. You'll learn by doing that, and then maybe you'll learn enough by doing that so that you can fix up your family a little bit, and then having done that, you'll have enough character so that when you try to operate in the world at your job, or maybe in the broader social spheres, that you'll be a force for good instead of harm, because you'll have learned some humility by noting just how difficult it was to put your damn room together, well, and yourself for that matter. And so you'll proceed cautiously with your eyes open towards the good. And so, well, those are some of the things I've been...
So what happens if I
get... cautiously with your eyes open towards the good. And so, well, those are some of the things I've been thinking about this week, and they're germane. They're germane to what we're going to discuss tonight, because what happens at the beginning of the Abrahamic stories is basically God comes to Abraham and just says, go. Get going, man. Do something. Get going. And you might think, well, where should I go? And God is somewhat vague about that, and where he sends Abraham, it's a real fixer-upper, man. It's like there's starvation there, and there's tyranny, and there's marital dissolution, and there's deceit. Like it's just like where you live, you know. It's exactly the same thing. It's tyranny and catastrophe. So that's, you know, the tyrannical great father, because Abraham ends up having to sojourn in Egypt, and there's a famine, and so Mother Nature is on the rampage, and Abraham lies about his wife, as we'll see. And so it's the world. It's tyranny and vulnerability and deceit. And yet God says, go, because if you do go, then you'll become a father of nations. And you think, well, again, that's pretty good news, although it's strange, because you'd expect that if God chose Abraham, then he'd send him immediately to the land of honey, land of milk and honey, and that isn't what happens at all. It doesn't happen at all, and Abraham never gets there. But his mission is still regarded as divine, and thank God for that, because that's what your mission will be, because that's what you will encounter in your life. Those are the archetypal things everyone encounters: the tyranny of the social structure, and the rapaciousness of nature, and the deceitful quality of the human psyche. It's like, that's the world. Now, that's a negative view in some sense, but it's positive in the story, because what it basically says is something that's akin to the Sermon on the Mount, which is that if you're aligned with God and you pay attention to the divine injunction, then you can operate in the midst of chaos and tyranny and deception and flourish. And you could hardly hope to have a better piece of news than that, given that that's exactly where you are. So, and I didn't see any of that in the Abrahamic stories to begin with, so it's been very interesting to have that sort of reveal itself. The Abraham section thus develops the personality and character of a man to a new degree in biblical narrative, while picturing him in a new degree of responsibility. In him, a new degree of responsibility. So here's the other thing that's really struck me, and I think this is of absolutely crucial importance, and I don't know how much importance, but it's certainly important to me. One of the things that has just blown me away in the last year, because I've talked to lots of people live, you know, but also lots of people online, but it's more obvious live, and it's obvious in this theater as well, is that I've gone around and spoken, and a large proportion of my audience has been young men, you know, under 30, something like that. And I've spoken to them a lot about responsibility. And what's so odd about this is that of all the things that I've spoken about, because I can see the audience and I can feel how the audience is reacting, because I'm always paying attention to all of you insofar as I can manage that. So I get some sense of how what I'm saying is landing, you know, which you have to do if you're going to speak effectively to people. And what happens is, if I talk about responsibilities, everyone is silent, just like they are now. Silent and not moving, right? Focusing, attentive. Say, pick up your responsibility. Pick up the heaviest thing you can and carry it. And the room goes quiet and everybody's eyes open. And I think, that always makes me break up. I don't know why. I was speaking to an English journalist today who's going to write an article in Spectator magazine, and I was talking about this, and at the same point in the discussion, I had the same emotional reaction. I don't really understand it. I think there's something about it that's so crucial, because, you know, we've been fed this unending diet of rights and freedoms, and there's something about that, there's something about that that's so pathologically wrong, and people are starving for the antidote, and the antidote is truth and responsibility, right? And it isn't because that's what you should do in some I know better or someone knows better for you what you should do sense. It's that's the secret to a meaningful life, and without a meaningful life, then all you have is suffering and nihilism and despair and all of that, and self-contempt, and that's not good. And so it's necessary for men to stand up and take responsibility, and they all know that and are starving for that message. And the message is more that that's also a good thing, to stand up and take responsibility, because you're cursed so much now from when you're young with this notion that your active engagement with the world is part of what is destroying and undermining the planet and adding to the tyranny of the social systems. It's like, how about not so much of that, hey? Because it's too soul deadening. It's anti-human right to the core. And my sense instead is that, you know, if you were able to reveal the best of yourself to you in the world, that you would be an overwhelming force for good, and that whatever errors might be made along the way would wash out in the works. And that's the other thing that you see in the Abrahamic stories, because Abraham is not a perfect person by any stretch of the imagination. He's a real person, and he makes mistakes, but it doesn't matter. The overarching narrative is, you know, maintain your covenant with God, and despite your inadequacies, then not only will you prevail, but your descendants will prevail. It's like, great, that's really good news, you know. So it's been really something to see that in the stories. It's not that, so that's responsibility. It's not just that Abraham is kinder, gentler, more intrepid, ethical, or a better debater than his ancestor Noah. Rather, both the Noah and Abraham stories are pieces of a development of an increasingly stronger stance of humans relative to the deity. Before the story is over, humans will become a good deal stronger and bolder than Abraham. Well, that's really something to say, because Abraham is pretty bold. So let's read the stories. The first one is about Abraham, Sarah, and Lot. Now, these are the generations of Terah. Terah begat Abraham. So his name is Abraham to begin with, and that actually turns out to be important. It's not Abraham. Nahor and Haran begat Lot. So Haran is Abram's brother. And Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity, in Ur of the Chaldees. And Abram and Nahor took them wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and the father of Iscah. But Sarai was barren, she had no child. And Terah took Abram his son, and Lot the son of Haran his son's son, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan. That's exile. And they came unto Haran and dwelt there. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. And there's a reason that Sarai is introduced as barren, and it's to set the stage. I think it was Anton Chekhov who, when he was talking about the stage setting for a play, that if there was a rifle hanging on the wall, then it had better been used before, I believe, the second act, or it shouldn't be hanging there at all, right? And so this is stage setting, and part of the reason that the biblical writers are pointing out that Abram's wife is barren is because it's a real catastrophe for Abraham, and for Sarai as well, that she's barren. And so it's showing the trouble that Abraham's in at the beginning of the story. And it's also see, what happens as the story progresses is that Abraham and Sarah are eventually granted a son, but it's way late in the story, and they're very, very old by the time it happens. And of course, you're not going to be a father of nations without having a child. And so the writers are attempting to make the case that if you forthrightly pursue that which God directs you to pursue, let's say, that all things are possible. That's the idea in the narrative. And you know, you might say that's naive, and you know, it's not. You think it when you're naive, right? And then you dispense with that idea. And then when you stop being the sort of person who dispenses with ideas, then you come to another place. And that's the place where you think you have no idea what might be possible for you if you got things together and pursued what you should pursue. You don't know how much what's impossible to you right now would become possible under those conditions. It's an unknown phenomena. And like, I've watched people who've put themselves together across time, you know, incrementally and continually, and they become capable of things that are not only jaw-droppingly amazingly, but also sometimes metaphysically impossible to understand. And so we don't know the limits of human endeavor. We truly don't. And it's premature to put a cap on what it is that we are, what it is that we're capable of. And so you know, you're already something, and maybe you're not so bad in your current configuration. But you might wonder, if you did nothing for the next 30 years except put yourself together, just exactly what would you be able to do? And you might think, well, that's worth finding out. But
ever since we got Reich, managing my team and their projects is a lot less dramatic. For glance,
of course, that's the adoption of responsibility. And one thing I've also learned over the years, because I've been curious about this battle between meaning and nihilism, you know, and I could see for a long while the rationale in nihilism and the power of the nihilistic argument, but it occurred to me across time that despite that the power of the nihilistic argument is more powerful than naive optimism, but it's not more powerful than the optimism that is not naive. Because the optimism that is not naive says it's self-evident that the world is a place of suffering and that there are things to be done about that. And it's self-evident that people are flawed and that there's things to be done about that. And then the non-naive optimist says the suffering could be reduced and the insufficiency could be overcome if people oriented themselves properly and did what they were capable of doing. And I do not believe that that's deniable. I think that human potential is virtually limitless, and that there's nothing perhaps that's beyond our grasp if we're careful as individuals and as a society. And so I think that there's no reason for nihilism, and there's no reason for hopelessness, and there's no reason to bow down before evil, because we're capable of so much more. And I think that you can easily, you know that first, because you're not happy with who you are, and you're ashamed and embarrassed about it, as you should be. And you know it because if you look out there, you see people who are capable of doing great things, and you know that we're not giving it our all. And still we're not doing so badly, you know? And so you might wonder if we devoted 90% of our effort to putting things right instead of 55% of our effort, or maybe even less than that, you might wonder just how well could things be put together. And I think that you can figure that out by starting with your room, by the way. And the Lord said unto Abram,
will be remembered. Never do yourself what others can do for you. Transgression and observance of the law. In 1883, a young Serbian scientist named Nikola Tesla was working for the European division of the Continental Edison Company. He was a brilliant inventor, and Charles Batchelor, a plant manager and a personal friend of Thomas Edison, persuaded him he should seek his fortune in America, giving him a letter of introduction to Edison himself. So began a life of woe and tribulation that lasted until Tesla's death. When Tesla met Edison in New York, the famous inventor hired him on the spot. Tesla worked 18-hour days, finding ways to improve the primitive Edison dynamos. Finally, he offered to redesign them completely. To Edison, this seemed a monumental task that could last years without paying off. But he told Tesla, "There's $50,000 in it for you, if you can do it." Tesla labored day and night on the project, and after only a year, he produced a greatly improved version of the dynamo, complete with automatic controls. He went to Edison to break the good news and receive his $50,000. Edison was pleased with the improvement, for which he and his company would take credit. But when it came to the issue of the money, he told the young Serb, "Tesla, you don't understand our American humor," and offered a small raise instead. Tesla's obsession was to create an alternating current system. To further your own cause. Not only will such assistance save you valuable time and energy, it will give you a godlike aura of efficiency and speed. In the end, your helpers will be forgotten, and you will be remembered. Never do yourself what others can do for you. Transgression and observance of the law. In 1883, a young Serbian scientist named Nikola Tesla was working for the European division of the Continental Edison Company. He was a brilliant inventor, and Charles Batchelor, a plant manager and a personal friend of Thomas Edison, persuaded him he should seek his fortune in America, giving him a letter of introduction to Edison himself. So began a life of woe and tribulation that lasted until Tesla's death. When Tesla met Edison in New York, the famous inventor hired him on the spot. Tesla worked 18-hour days, finding ways to improve the primitive Edison dynamos. Finally, he offered to redesign them completely. To Edison, this seemed a monumental task that could last years without paying off. But he told Tesla, "There's $50,000 in it for you, if you can do it." Tesla labored day and night on the project, and after only a year, he produced a greatly improved version of the dynamo, complete with automatic controls. He went to Edison to break the good news and receive his $50,000. Edison was pleased with the improvement, for which he and his company would take credit. But when it came to the issue of the money, he told the young Serb, "Tesla, you don't understand our American humor," and offered a small raise instead. Tesla's obsession was to create an alternating current system, AC, of electricity. Edison believed in the direct current system, DC, and not only refused to support Tesla's research, but later did all he could to sabotage him. Tesla turned to the great Pittsburgh magnate George Westinghouse, who had started his own electricity company. Westinghouse completely funded Tesla's research and offered him a generous royalty agreement on future profits. The AC system Tesla developed is still the standard today. But after patents were filed in his name, other scientists came forward to take credit for the invention, claiming that they had laid the groundwork for him. His name was lost in the shuffle, and the public came to associate the invention with Westinghouse himself. A year later, Westinghouse was caught in a takeover bid from J. Pierpont Morgan, who made him rescind the generous royalty contract he had signed with Tesla. Westinghouse explained to the scientist that his company would not survive if it had to pay him his full royalties. He persuaded Tesla to accept a buyout of his patents for $216,000. A large sum, no doubt, but far less than the $12 million they were worth at the time. The financiers had divested Tesla of the riches, the patents, and essentially the credit for the greatest invention of his career. The name of Guglielmo Marconi is forever linked with the invention of radio. But few know that in producing his invention, he broadcast a signal across the English Channel in 1899. Marconi made use of a patent Tesla had filed in 1897, and that his work depended on Tesla's research. Once again, Tesla received no money and no credit. Tesla invented an induction motor as well as the AC power system, and he is the real father of radio. Yet none of these discoveries bear his name. As an old man, he lived in poverty. In 1917, during his later impoverished years, Tesla was told he was to receive the Edison Medal of the American Institute of Electrical Engineers. He turned the medal down. "You propose," he said, "to honor me with a medal which I could pin upon my coat and strut for a vain hour before the members of your institute. You would decorate my body and continue to let starve for failure to supply recognition my mind and its creative products, which have supplied the foundation upon which the major portion of your institute exists." Interpretation. Many harbor the illusion that science, dealing with facts as it does, is beyond the petty rivalries that trouble the rest of the world. Nikola Tesla was one of those. He believed science had nothing to do with politics and claimed not to care for fame and riches. As he grew older, though, this ruined his scientific work. Not associated with any particular discovery, he could attract no investors to his many ideas. While he pondered great inventions for the future, others stole the patents he had already developed and got the glory for themselves. He wanted to do everything on his own, but merely exhausted and impoverished himself in the process. Edison was Tesla's polar opposite. He wasn't actually much of a scientific thinker or inventor. He once said that he had no need to be a mathematician because he could always hire one. That was Edison's main method. He was really a businessman and publicist, spotting the trends and the opportunities that were out there, then hiring the best in the field to do the work for him. If he had to, he would steal from his competitors. Yet his name is much better known than Tesla's and is associated with more inventions. The lesson is twofold. First, the credit for an invention or creation is as important, if not more important, than the invention itself. You must secure the credit for yourself and keep others from stealing it away or from piggybacking on your hard work. To accomplish this, you must always be vigilant and ruthless, keeping your creation quiet until you can be sure there are no vultures circling overhead. Second, learn to take advantage of other people's work to further your own cause. Time is precious and life is short. If you try to do it all on your own, you run yourself ragged, waste energy, and burn yourself out. It is far better to conserve your forces, pounce on the work others have done, and find a way to make it your own. Keys to power. This is the essence of the law. Learn to get others to do the work for you, while you take the credit and you appear to be of godlike strength and power. If you think it important to do all the work yourself, you will never get far, and you will suffer the fate of the Teslas of the world. Find people with the skills and creativity you lack. Either hire them while putting your own name on top of theirs, or find a way to take their work and make it your own. Their creativity thus becomes yours, and you seem a genius to the world. Law 8. Make other people come to you. Use bait if necessary. Judgment. When you force the other person to act, you are the one in control. It is always better to make your opponent come to you, abandoning his own plans in the process. Lure him with fabulous gains, then attack.